All right. Good evening, everyone. If any of you are sitting back and waiting for Startup Grind to start, you can come in the front rows. We have 4 or 5 chairs here, so don't be shy to join us in the front. It's been a while from my side. Last time I moderated Startup Grind was actually 12 months ago, so it's great to be back and see you here. Tonight we are hosting Ján Cifra, the CEO of WebSupport. Slovak, well, I call it a love brand company. Everybody knows it, so please welcome Ján on stage.
It's on? Hi guys.
So, before we start, I see quite a few new faces. Let me introduce Startup Grind, who we are. We are a global community of entrepreneurs. We are in more than 200 cities across the world. Originally started in Silicon Valley, and it's supported by Google for Entrepreneurs, or Google for Startups nowadays. And for the local chapter here in Bratislava, the sponsors are Decent, and one of our partners is Campus Cowork. Where you're sitting here, it's a co-working space and network here in Slovakia. I'm also one of the co-founders of these spaces. And yeah, the Startup Grind is basically to motivate and inspire local entrepreneurs to kind of share stories of people like Ján is. And yeah, we've been around for a couple of years, so if you guys are ready, let me start digging through Ján's life. So thanks a lot.
Hey. First of all, thank you for having me.
So I was going through your LinkedIn today. I have to justify it. I saw your kind of summary. It said people and technology. How does it describe you? What does it mean in your life?
Well, people are always a part of my life, sort of. But no, I love technology. And, ever since I was young, and the first computer I ever had was somewhere in 86, 87, maybe 1 year later in the US, when my father bought a ZX Spectrum computer that ran on magnetic tapes, and and it was an amazing machine back then, and I loved it, and I played a lot of games. I tried to understand how it works, but as time went by, and I understood that technology on its own is useless at the end of the day, right? It needs humans to kind of take advantage of it, and so I think that's where my sweet spot is. It's like people and technology, and a lot of things can happen when these two mix the right way. If they mix the wrong way, it goes wrong usually, but yeah, I try to be in this space. That's where I'm very comfortable.
Right, and so where does this come from? Maybe you can tell us a bit more about yourself. So where did you grow up? Where were you born?
Yeah, I was born here in Bratislava, and I have 2 brothers, and when I was very young, well, I was 6, 7, we moved to the US, and I went to grammar school there, and and I saw, in a way, back then it was relatively rare to be able to get out there, and then you saw how the world could work, and I had a very diverse class, and I met a lot of people there. I was still very young. And when we moved back, we again moved to Holland again, and so I had this international experience very early on in my life, which shaped me going forward, and allowed me to have access to technology and to these kind of things that a lot of people did not have back then. And so, it inspired me to kind of try and investigate this space a bit more, and we came back in around '93 to Slovakia. I went to school here, then high school and all that, and it's in high school is where it really kind of, I went all in technology, but it was again driven by, for example, by gaming. I played StarCraft professionally. I went to World Cyber Games in San Francisco in 2004, and so gaming has driven my mission in technology, because back then, setting up a home network was complicated. It was sharing information in a local network was complicated, insecure. There were so many issues, and so understanding this, I was the kind of the IT guy for the whole family, for the broader family. I studied physics at the time, but I realized very early on that physics is not what I want to do. It's you need more brains for that than I have, and so pretty much in my third or fourth year in the at university, I decided I had a very hard conversation with my girlfriend at the time, and my wife. She's not my wife, fortunately. Where I said I was like, screw this school. I want to do something, and I was really lucky because I was just looking for any job. Back then, Dell was a company that was hiring a lot of people here. So I tried to go there, but fortunately, I got an interview with a German company that had a local shared service center actually across the street here, and I found an amazing set of people working in technology in a corporation. You know, all the startup people, you know, hate these corporations, and they go like, this was 120,000 people across the world, you know, German, very structured, but the team here was amazing. And that's again the people part, that, you know, you can hate corporations, love startups, you know, all these things. At the end of the day, it's all about the people. And in this company, I was able to grow very quickly from, I started as a part-time help desk agent for internal IT, doing network, printers, all this bullshit. But after a couple of months, one of my bosses told me, like, you know, you're pretty interested in technology. I started coding some internal tools, just on the side, because I didn't want to go to school. I was just in love with technology. And they said, like, don't you want to be a developer? I said, hell yeah, I want to. Yeah. You know, so I started coding in Java and stuff like that. And 6 months into my coding career, they came to me and they said, listen, you talk way too much for a developer. You should be project manager. And so I became a project manager, and this, you know, this kind of started my career into understanding how IT works, how management works, how people work across, you know, geographies, because I had responsibility for some SAP parts, some web stuff, and this across the world. And so I traveled a lot, and I met a lot of people, and it just kind of, you know, it took me additionally 3 more years to finish school because I was just working so much, and I was in love with it.
There was some physics, bio?
Yeah, so I was studying bio. I started in 2001, and I did my kind of state exams in 2005 or 6, I think, but it took me 3 more years to deliver my thesis because I was just working. I loved it. I just, you know, everybody in my family was making fun of me because I was doing IT, but the company Infineon does semiconductors, chips, and all of your phones. To this very day, we have chips from them, and you know, I was in love with it. You know, in 2008, the iPhone was coming out. I knew about some of these things because we had this code name inside the company for Apple. I found it later it was Apple, but actually when Steve Jobs announced the iPhone, a couple of weeks after that, I realized that I wasn't working on it, but people in my company were working on it, and it was kind of crazy, you know, to understand. So I was in love with technology, but the enabler for me to take advantage of it was really the team.
And then you also worked for Piano, which is quite well known Slovak early stage company that managed to scale to, you know, international waters. Currently raised 22 million in their round. How was that transfer from working in a corporation, you know, 120,000 people across the world, and kind of joining a relatively small company in Slovakia? Did you see any kind of, like, did you transfer the know-how from corporate, or was like okay, brand new start, you know, learning everything from scratch, etc.?
It's funny because the jump was even bigger, because after this job at the German company, I kind of thought that I should develop my management talents a bit more, because they made me a platform manager. I was like responsible for a lot of people and all that. Very young, and I thought, like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I should learn something about this stuff. Because for me, I have no education in that space. And so I went and did an MBA in Belgium. And you know, in an MBA, what they train you to do is, like, you're going to go into consulting, private equity. On the investment side, you go into a corporation, get a big job. That's what an MBA is for, right? But after I finished my MBA, I was in Brussels, and I was like looking around. I had interviews with some of these corporations, big banks, these kind of, I was like, I don't want to do that again. It's just, you know. And I saw a post by Tomáš Bela on LinkedIn saying they're looking for people. It was like this ambitious, audacious goal of saving journalism that just inspired me. And like, I really don't care how I'm going to get paid. I just want to do this. I loved reading news. I read a lot of newspapers, and I loved it. And it was such a good fit. It was technology. It was business. It was something I was in love with. And Tomáš had clearly the background to pull this off. And so I just emailed him saying, hey, I don't know what you need. I just did an MBA, I can do anything. And so I was the CFO for a time and head of sales and various positions. As in a startup, you have to kind of wear a lot of hats. But I helped raise the first, well, not the seed round, but the first A round, or whatever you would call it today, from 3TS Capital at the time. So that was a great success because back then we raised 2 million euros for, at the time, 2011. I think we actually raised it in 2012 early. Was at that time.
That was the biggest round.
It was the biggest round at the time, definitely, in a startup environment, and it was 3TS, which is a great partner. And Pekka is known here for, he's a great guy, and his team is fantastic. And so it was an amazing ride. And for the first 3 months, I didn't get paid because we didn't have any money. I didn't care at the time because it was just such a great story.
So you basically saw the both sides, a corporate life and a startup
Yeah.
life. And now you're leading a company called WebSupport, which was founded and established by well-known Michel Truban. And you, a couple of years ago, you took over his role. Actually, FYI, we are using Slido, and you probably noticed, the hashtag is Ján Cifra. So if you have any questions, I'll take 10 to 15 minutes at the end to answer those. So after piano, you had some other job, or you went directly to WebSupport?
No, I got an intern. I consulted for a couple of startups. I had raised money for some, and then just tried to make the best of the experience. But we had a kid on the way, and I was like thinking, like diving back into the startup world. It's pretty intense. You don't have a family life really, and because of piano, I was traveling a lot, and my wife was in Brussels, and it was just, we didn't see each other. It was really hard for our relationship as well. So I thought that I don't want to go into the startup world. I'm not ready yet. It was pretty intense at piano, and so I was thinking what to do. And it was at that point that Michel approached me, and I felt like, wow, this is such a good fit. It's like the hosting business doesn't seem like the most exciting business ever. It's pretty stable. It's healthy. WebSupport had a great brand, a great history, and the only kind of concern I had is this amazing challenge of following in Michal's footsteps in some way, taking over this story, and it was a big, step, and it took us a while to get there.
So how did he approach you? I mean, did you approach you directly? Hey, I need to step down. I want to do something else, and you want to be my CEO, or was it some kind of slower transformation? And you had to figure it out, you two.
My understanding was that he approached me directly based on a recommendation, which is funny how things work, because Michal has had many activities over the years, and he always, went and did something, and then came back to WebSupport again, and then again did something. And he had this back and forth, but he told me that he was doing a big disservice to the company and himself, because he couldn't be focused on the company for a long time, for a long stretch of time. He had to he wanted to do other things, and so he decided that it was time. And what I really appreciate is that his kind of reflection that I am doing the company a disservice by holding on to it. This is why kind of this founder relationship with the company is so important. It's very important from my perspective for the founder to realize this, that at some point you might be a blocker in that spot, in that top spot, because you want to do other things or whatever, for whatever reasons. And he had this self-reflection that he wants to focus on other things. And so it took us about 6 months of discussions on like bi-weekly or monthly basis to kind of discuss how are we going to pull this off. And after the 6 months, we agreed that I'm going to start as head of sales for like a 3-month period, after which he will reveal that I'm actually taking over the CEO job if there's a cultural fit, if both myself and, because I wasn't sure either. When you see these super strong founders in companies, the company is built around their personality. And it's hard for somebody, even an insider would have a hard time, but an outsider, on paper it seems tricky to me still to this day.
That was my follow-up question. So, I mean, yeah, the whole brand and everything was built around him. Did you actually have like a well-thought-out kind of strategy, or maybe like even PR strategy? He's a quite publicly known person. So, how did you go about this? Like, so also the people inside of the company understand it, so they have also respect. They respect you, and but also the whole kind of
so we didn't have a super sophisticated PR strategy, no. I think, and for me, I was really focused on the team inside, because at the end of the day, the company speaks through its products, through its normal communication. A lot of people make a lot out of the CEO role, but what's really important is the whole team. And so I was really focused on getting the trust of the main people in the company, the people who kind of make things work, and trying to kind of build relationships. And so when I entered the company as head of sales, I had a lot of intense conversations with who I deem are really important people to how WebSupport works. And over time, they suddenly started realizing, like, why is this sales guy asking me these questions? It doesn't really make sense, It's starting to be a bit more. And so, like, after 4 or 5 weeks, Micha said, let's just announce, because people are not stupid, and it seems to be working because they were talking to me. And so we just announced it internally, and then Micha wrote a blog post publicly. But we didn't think that. I personally don't think that it's such a important thing for customers. The company's the same, where we want to do the same good stuff and all that. And on the operational side, obviously, it's an important change. But for Micha, it was important because he was a public person, and he wrote his post. But I was really focused on the company.
Did you see any friction in terms of internal team, maybe more senior managers? Maybe they wanted to be the CEO, and new guy came in and took over?
Yeah, I think my colleague Tomasz Kontak, who has been the CEO of WebSupport and has been running it when Micha was away, I really wanted to keep him. He's a great guy, he's very loyal to the company, and I saw that in a way it was stressful for him. But what I always feel is that you have to be open about it, and Micha was very open about why he did this, why he didn't promote him to that position, but rather me. And we, to this very day, we have an amazing relationship, and it works very well. He's so much better in many things that I'm terrible at, and I'm much better in some other things. And the combination I have is maybe better suited for this role at this moment. Life's changed over time, and his combination of skills and experience is extremely useful in that. But it was intense, and there are people who left WebSupport because of me. Well, they probably would not admit it. They would not say, "Yeah, I left because of Ján." But with the head changing, the company changes, and not everybody is going to be on board with that.
So, what were your first steps as a CEO? Usually, when there's a change in management, fire half of the people or something, these extreme, things. But what were your first steps?
Well, because I had this time to go 4 or 5 weeks to get to know the company internally, and it's a pretty short time, but it's a small company, so it's not, it's not rocket science at the end of the day. But I tried to get to know the people and how they work, how they are kind of, and what I realized is that what I saw in many startups and many small companies is that because the CEO role or the founder role is so centric to their existence, to the way of working, that it's a bottleneck. Because suddenly they were coming to me with questions like, whether I would approve this or that, a marketing strategy or a communication. I said, I have no idea. You're the marketing guys. What? Why are you asking me? Like, you are the experts in that. Like, if you have 3 suggestions and you want me to help you choose, I'll tell you my opinion, but the decision is yours. It's not mine. But what I realize, and I see always, I saw it also in Piano and in other startups, is that for a long time, if the founder is so centric to a lot of decisions for a long time in a company, people get comfortable with it because it takes away responsibility from them. They don't have to make the decision. They have to come up with an idea, but somebody else will make the leap. Let's do this. Let's bet on this. And so what I saw a little bit is that this central role of Michal in making some of these decisions and taking the responsibility. And I felt that is not fair for the CEO. How can I make a decision on in IT infrastructure? I know a lot about IT, but it's.
I guess you had to distribute the ownership.
Yeah, so I spent a lot of time on talking to people and explaining that no, we have to we're going to work as a team, and I have a job in this team as you do, and mine is this, and yours is this and this, and I'm really, one of my jobs is to be like a ace in a pocket. You have a tough situation, you pull out the ace, you come to me for counsel, for discussion, for help, But at the end of the day, if we're talking about IT, it's my CTO's job to make the call. And if he makes the wrong one, I'm going to be angry, but it's his responsibility, you know? So it was one of the, I think, fundamental things that changed over time, that I wasn't willing to take, in a sense, all the responsibility, because that's what the manager is there for, right?
I recently read an article at the Harvard Business Review, and they basically analyzed that the founding CEO has a completely different set of skills and capabilities than the professional CEOs that manage to scale the company. You've seen it with Piano. You've now seen it also with WebSupport. Would you say that, or could you say some examples of how you see these comparison?
I think the founder CEOs have tremendous energy. You know, you see it in Michal. He's starting a lot of things, putting a lot of initiatives, exploring Skoda Digital, and now in politics in segments that you'd never imagine that, but he's just an amazing, source of rocket fuel, and if he gets an idea, he just pushes through. And I am much more careful, because I have to think about, okay, if we do this, how are we going to make sure that we can launch the rockets tomorrow, and how can we launch 3 rockets at the same time without everybody spending 15 hours in the office every day. And so launching the first rocket is very hard. You see Elon Musk trying to do that, but as of a certain time, it becomes less of a problem launching one, but a problem of making sure all of them launch on time, and it's a different set of skills. And so I think that's absolutely right, and I am exactly the type of CEO that tries to kind of make sure that things overall run well. They still say that they made this email address for me after the first year, prskaka@websupport.sk. If you write there, I'm going to get it, because I just came into a room with an idea and I was super energetic. I had a lot of energy as well, but I'm just much more careful in wielding it, because you can put it. Some of the guys in the team describe Michal's approach like he has this flashlight, and he points the flashlight at a particular project, and at that point, that project gets boosted regardless of everything around it. But that means that everything around it is basically dying. And I think this is a good approach in the beginning, when you have to be super focused on one thing, get it done, raising money, getting the product out, getting the first customers. It's very serial. But as of a certain scale, when you're a scale-up and no longer a startup, it's really about kind of going more horizontal and doing multiple things at the same time, and it's hard than doing it with a flashlight. So now they say that I came to WebSupport, I turn on the light. And the flashlight is not the same light everywhere, but it's kind of spread across.
How's your relationship now? You're still the shareholder, you're the executive officer. What is your relationship at the moment?
He's my boss in a way, but I think we have a lot of trust between each other. He asks a lot of questions. He has a lot of insights. He has been in the business for a while, so I consult with him if I feel that there is something that I need some input on, or and I think he's an amazing guy. But he lets me run the company. I think this is one of the things that are, I think, underappreciated. That if really the founder CEO lets go, and he really lets you do your thing and let the company be your company in that sense, I think that's amazing, and it has allowed me to succeed. Without that, I don't think I would be able to succeed. In the beginning, he had these, let's meet on a weekly basis and let's do check-ins and all that. But after a while, when we saw things were running okay, and you have to build this trust over time. It doesn't come. Immediately you have to build it over time, but because we had these meetings before for 6 months, and because we had this handover, that he felt pretty quickly comfortable with me writing things my way, and I think he's happy with the results.
How about any mistakes or fuck-ups you encountered during the transformation period?
Just my fuck-ups, or?
Both, you can't say everything.
I'm sorry about some of the people that left, because again, in a startup, there's a lot of people who are extremely creative and they want to do their thing, and but at some point you kind of have to understand that you're part of a bigger thing, and sometimes your ideas will not win. And you have to be able to, if you agree with the team that that your idea was not the best and another idea won, you have to put your energy into that idea for the better of the company. And some talented people, I think, felt that, that other ideas was better, or the way I was running things was not as free and open as WebSupport was used to. And I said, yeah, this is kind of what I learned from corporations, that corporations are not bad. They at some point lose sight of individual skills and initiative, which is terrible, and they're trying to learn that from startups today. But on the other hand, they learn quickly how to scale. And so you have to balance that in a way. You have to have a process where the best ideas win, but also when an idea wins, that everybody gets on board with it. And in Europe, this is hard. In Asia, you have the experience, I'm not sure, but in Asia, when there's a massive fight, when there's a decision to be made, they fight physically. The Japanese primarily, they fight physically sometimes. But when there's a decision, they're all in one line. And in Europe, it's the German company had a CEO from Singapore, and he told me the story. In Europe, when you try to make a decision, everybody says, okay, I agree. They walk out of the room, and in their head, but I'm still going to do my thing. Right. And so I've seen this often, and so this is something I'm trying to build into the culture of the company, that I'm totally up for a fight. Let's talk. And everybody can disagree with me and can tell me why. And if they have arguments, I'm going to listen. But once we make a decision, we need to go.
So would you say that you are also changing the culture?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think every company's culture has to evolve. There is not one WebSupport culture. There was a culture when they were two guys in the dormitory. There was a culture when they had the first office in the basement and they had to run out to pick up phones from customers. There was a culture in Linska Dolina, and now we're in CBC, and the culture has evolved. The values are maybe the same, but the way we execute on those has changed. And some people are nostalgic about that, but I feel if you don't change, you die. And so you have to kind of adapt, move. We're still an extremely free and open company. We welcome all kind of different people. We have a word for it, but I was told it's politically incorrect, so I'm not going to say it. So I like to say that we accept people with all kinds of autism. And it's politically incorrect, I apologize, but that's the best description, because everybody has quirks, everybody has their, my COO, he's extremely structured. You tell him something and you have a mistake of a small number and that's wrong, it's completely wrong, that's unacceptable. You go, just, approximate it. Everybody has this autism, but we accept everybody. It doesn't matter if you like to bake cakes as a developer or you want to play computer games in the evening, and all that. It doesn't matter, it's fine. But we share the same values, we have the same goals, and we have this idea, meritocracy, that if somebody has a great idea, I don't care whether it's a helpless agent or it's myself or somebody, and has arguments, we're going to review it, and if we make a decision, we're going to go. But I need everybody to kind of fall in line. We made a decision, let's go.
If you look back since you joined the company, could you tell us more about how much you've grown? How was your 2018? And
sure.
Maybe some more numbers if you can.
Yeah, so you can look it up at Finstat, but we have almost doubled the company since I came on board, which I'm very happy about in terms of sales. So I'm really happy about that. We have grown in EBITDA margin, not just compared to sales, but we have increased it. We've improved the EBITDA performance, so I'm really happy about that. We have consolidated an acquisition in Hungary into our infrastructure, started making some money there. So we have done a lot of things, and 2018 was really good because I like to look at business as a chess game, because you can't be doing one move at a time. In chess, if you do one move at a time, you lose. You have to think about at least 6, 7 steps in advance, and the best players think 15, 20, 22 moves ahead. And you're not going to be right every time. A lot of your bets will not work, but sometimes your decisions will come together and will bring an extraordinarily good result, and that was 2018 for us. Because a lot of good things that we invested in over time came together. When I came to WebSupport, to disclose that to me in the beginning, but I quickly understood based on the calls to the help desk, we have 15 calls an hour per agent, which was crazy if you think about it. You can't even go pee. And so it was a very tough situation, but we we made some decisions on changing the infrastructure, on improving and focusing on quality and that, and it took us 2.5 years to execute because it's just not easy. We're the biggest holding hosting company here, and if we were just to pull the rug from under our customers, it wouldn't work. And so it had to be planned well in advance. And I told Michael, here's a 2.5-year plan, after which it's going to be okay. Trust me, now please give me a lot of money. You know, and it's hard for an owner to, you know, to say, okay, here you go.
So what do you think were the key changes you made?
Part of it is setting up kind of, we have a framework for making decisions or for an operational strategy. And so we prioritize service quality, then customer support, then product, brand, marketing, and then whatever new business we're looking at. That's kind of, we call it our pyramid of needs. So the idea is that if the service quality is good, then you can start working on customer support. If the customer support is good, you can do marketing and products and all that. And if all of those things are working fine, then we're going to do business. And so this kind of framework allowed us to quickly understand in this situation in 2015 to immediately say, okay, whatever you're doing, it doesn't matter. Everything has to go into fixing customer service quality. Because if the service is not good, it doesn't matter how good your support is. The people will be angry, they will not be happy, and nothing you do on support is going to help. But if that is fixed and your support is good, then you can launch new products, then you can do campaigns, because it's going to be sticky, it's going to work. People are going to listen to you because your service is good and your support is good. And if all those things work, you can buy companies, you can do, you know, partnerships and all that fun stuff. And so implementing this is, from my perspective, I didn't just come here and say, hey, here's the way we're going to work. This is my MBA template, how we're going to manage things. It was created through a process. I established a management offsite. We go to offsites 4 times a year. We always take a nice place somewhere in the mountains, and for 2 days we work. And when I initially proposed this idea to Michael, he said, like, well, you know, offsite, okay, I'll go, but these things never, you know. And you know, if you ask my management team, they will tell you that the first one was the hardest, because we were working 15 hours every day and for the 2 days, and out of like the first 3 or 4 offsites, this framework just appeared. And I think it was a great process, and it allowed us to really understand each other of how we're going to make decisions. And you know, and the other things that I could mention is that, you know, obviously the decision to change the infrastructure immediately when I realized how bad it was, and to invest, and it's, you know, the dividends from that will be coming back for the next 5 years at least. Definitely splitting up budgets and responsibility we discussed earlier. That I said I told them honestly, I told them I don't want to do anything. I don't want to have any operational role. I don't want to approve your holidays. I don't want to be doing any of that stuff because it's stupid. We're a small company. You need to know your budget and you need to make decisions for your company. Now, obviously, I am here to support you, to help you, to coach you, to help you make strategic decisions, but you have to understand that the responsibility at the end of the day is yours. Now, of course, the final responsibility is mine, towards the owners. But I cannot make a decision on the marketing strategy. I'm not the best marketer in the world. I have my competencies, my skills, but marketing is not one of them. And so, dividing these responsibilities and making clear, created a sense of ownership, and I think it works really well to this day. I don't need to be in the office every day for the company to work pretty well. So.
You guys also launched several new product lines. Could you tell us a bit more about those products and how they perform?
Yeah. Yeah, we try to launch a couple of products every year, and I think there's kind of 2 that I really like. One of them we talked about a little bit before the event is a British company, or in Slovakia it's called Vlastná webstránka, but it's our brand. But it's actually BaseKit from England. It's a site builder where you can just click through and build your own website. My wife actually uses it for her website, which I'm super proud. And it's a great tool because we realized at one point that there's a lot of people who want to go online, but they either don't have the money or don't want to spend the money on a developer to make their own website. They just want a blog or a basic e-shop or a portfolio page or something like that. But they would be willing to learn a tool like this, to click through the website and build it for their own business and go online like that. And so we worked with BaseKit to really own this product. While the engine is theirs, it's installed on our servers, we have our own kind of branding and communication around and tools for it. And it has been very successful for us. I'm very happy with the product. And it allowed us to get more people online. And if there's one kind of goal we really are happy about, when we see more people going online and building businesses, whether they're just more presences or each other portfolios, it makes me really happy because it means people are taking advantage of this technology and trying to build a business or whatever. And so this is performing really well. Last year we launched a product called Easy SEO, which is basically a coach for SEO for your website. So it works with the mainstream CMSs, and what it basically does is it analyzes your site compared to your competitors in your space. So I'm going to use my wife's website as an example. She has a yoga, Shala yoga space, and the tool looks at all the competitors in that space and compares your SEO to the keywords and to the competitors and allows you to optimize and coaches you through it. And it's all in Slovak, it's videos, using amazing technology to do the voice. It was actually recorded in Germany. It's a German company that builds the tool, the technology for it. So they hired a Slovak person in Germany to do the voiceovers, and so all our CMSs are implemented there, and so it guides you through in a very natural, human way on how to understand the magic of SEO. And so it's just in the beginning. Initially I wasn't very happy with the tool because it still seemed pretty complicated, but over time they're improving it, and it's getting really to a sweet spot where I think it's going to be really successful. And we strongly believe that it's not just about giving you functionality in terms of here's a hosting or here's a WordPress site or whatever, a virtual server, but also allowing you to succeed. Because at the end of the day, the hosting is just a natural need you have. You have to be online, you have to have space to put your website on. But to succeed, you have to understand SEO, you have to understand PPC, you have to understand a bunch of things, and so we're going to try and add tools that not only allow you to go online, but to be successful online. And so Easy SEO is one of these tools.
What are you guys working on for this year, if you can disclose?
Let me think whether I can. I wouldn't like to disclose product things because it's always, I'll give you an example. Last year we launched a beta for a Docker product. And with Docker, it's interesting because there's probably people here who use Docker a lot. But we're trying to build a mass Docker product for the normal people. For not necessarily Docker developers or people, and this is hard because Docker is a very nascent technology today. It works great, and if you know how to use it, but again, if you know how to use it. And so we launched a beta where we asked people to try and use it and see what they think, and we think the technology is ready. I'm not sure that the business model is, because we realized there's like 2 or 3 segments, different segments that started to use the beta, and we're not sure on which to focus or where really we can add the most value. And so, we do all these kind of things. We try a beta here, or we do an internal thing, and we look at how we could make this work, and not all of those things actually come to the market. So, there is a bunch of things in the works. Which of those will see the light of day?
How do you initiate the ideation of these new products? I know Misha did several hackathons before. What do you guys do?
We do 2 hackathons a year, and sometimes ideas originate there. But that's not a systemic way of doing that. What I prefer is, the admins and developers, they do their own stuff, they try stuff all the time. And so from a technology perspective, a lot of ideas come from there. We also have a great network now across the world in the hosting business. So I meet with CEOs or management of big hosting companies like Strato, GoDaddy, Combo, and a lot of others, OVH, and stuff like that. And so we share ideas and what they're doing, what's popular, what's working, what's not working. We go to conferences, and so the ideation is really very organic, but we build a backlog. So we have a backlog of ideas, and we look at it, we progress, we change the order sometimes, and then we have these quarterly offsites where we go out, and one of the days is spent a lot planning and saying, okay, what are we going to take out of that, what we're trying to do. And often, people, in the beginning, people, the management has had this idea that they will come to the offsite and there we'll figure it out. And over time, I saw that how we slowly, a lot of people started preparing for the offsite, so they came with already a pretty good idea of what they wanted to do. So the offsite was really a great material discussion on the decision. Not really like, oh, because the problem was that you don't have all the product people at the offsite, you don't have all the technical guys who can tell you this. So they actually prepared a week in advance for all these discussions, and they just came as a representative of their team, saying, here's what we think, and here's how we can do it. And so these offsets really became really streamlined and really efficient, and basically making decisions, planning, and all of the kind of work happens organically in the office between the people they meet, and they figure it out, put it into the backbone, and not just plan.
Right. One of my last sections is basically maybe personal, like who you are and stuff, but I see a couple of questions here, and before I jump to that section. I like the third question. Are you considering any additional acquisitions for further growth? And do you see the segment or the industry of web hosting consolidated or fragmented? And is there any, maybe how is the industry changing as well?
Yeah, so the industry is, in the West, it's being consolidated right now. There's a lot of transaction happening. If you look at Germany, for example, basically there are two players left. It's 1&1 and GoDaddy, and they're just fighting for the last pieces in Germany. But the Central and Eastern European market, Baltics and Balkan, they're pretty fragmented. So there's a lot of opportunity, so we're definitely in the market. If you're a hosting company, I'm buying. I have a really big wallet now, and I'd like to buy something. It's hard though, because the maturity of M&A here is not so well developed, so it takes time for potential targets to understand a transaction and what it would mean and all that stuff. So and the valuations are pretty crazy right now. So I have a transaction on the table that I could do tomorrow, but they're pretty pricey, so I'm kind of being careful with that. But yes, definitely, I'm in the market. If you know somebody with a hosting company, I'm buying.
Another question, do you have any shares or employee stock option plan?
I'm not going to answer that one.
Good, right? How do you see the role of a CFO in tech companies? Is it comparably important like in traditional ones?
I don't know, I don't know what you think about the CFO role, but CFO is an extremely senior job in large corporations. Even calling myself the CFO of a startup is just ridiculous. Because back then it sounded sexy. We were raising money, so But really, in the beginning, in a small company, we don't have a CFO. We have my COO, who is basically working with the accountants. He knows it. So what I recommend for startups is have a guy who has a title VP of Finance or something like that. I don't know if you do VPs here or what kind of titles people give each other, but have someone who knows the numbers really well. But no, because the CFO is about sophisticated cash management, balance sheet management, leverage and all that stuff. And at this size, I don't think it's
one spreadsheet, isn't it?
Yeah. Like if you look at the balance sheet of the startups and companies, there's not a lot of stuff that CFO could do. So.
Another question. You tell me whether you want to answer or not. Do you have any problems after Misha decided to join a political career? Maybe problem is not the right way, but do you see any kind of friction or challenges there?
No. I think the market and people in the community understand that Michal is a person. He's not attached to WebSupport by the umbilical cord or something. He's a guy who started the company. He was still very much our big fan and involved, but at the end of the day,
Did you hear any feedback from the market?
There's people who say things, but if I were to listen to everybody that says things, I would not be.
Looking at the numbers probably didn't influence your business. So.
No. There are some people who say, great that he's doing that, but again, they're not buying from us because he's doing politics. And there's not people canceling their services because a lot of people have opinions and that they're entitled to them, but we haven't seen any, we've seen comments, but.
All right. I'll get back to Slido after my question. So, what I'm interested in here, we are in a community center for startups. Do you follow the local community, and how do you see the Slovak startup ecosystem?
I definitely follow it. I coach a couple of CEOs and people I know, or who ask for help anyway. I really like doing that. Not because I think I'm very smart, but it's just great to know what's going on and see this fresh ambition and this energy in the ecosystem. I think it's full of energy right now. It's full of cheap money too, in a way, which may or may not be a good thing, depending on how you look at it. So, I've been here for a while now, back from Brussels, and I work with Piano and a couple of other startups, and I think that we, how to be nice. I think you have to realize that running a startup is really hard. It's not an easy job. It's not like a career where you, I'm just going to do this for 1 or 2 years, and it's just a commitment of such intensity and of such ambition that it's not something you can do on the side or it's maybe you can, I don't know what you experience, but from me personally, it was so intense that at one point I was in a position where I would like either do this or keep a relationship, or and so maybe I'm like this old nostalgic jerk or whatever, but I feel like a lot of it is now more pose than the hustle, as you would call it.
Maybe, but if you look at the quality of the startup, let's say, you've been here, what, 2011 with Piano, 2019, fast forward.
Yeah, so EBITDA and run rate and all that stuff. So that's great. I think it's good for investment because the investors now have the same language as the startups. That's fantastic. I think people like you guys do a great job in like educating these guys and these girls to kind of have the language to attract investors and all that. So I think that's great. I think the ideas are pretty good because the market compared to 2011 is, there's so many more people trying to do things in technology that it's hard to get great ideas. So I'm really happy that we have so many great, and I see some faces here. We have some great companies here that can bring it to market. So I think it's healthy. I think that cheap money is diluting that a little bit, but that's going to change soon. So that's a problem that's going to solve itself.
What are your kind of future plans personally? Where do you see yourself? A typical question in 5 years.
I hope I'm going to be a CEO of at least a Central European or at least a European hosting company called WebSupport. I think we have really big ambitions. It might be even faster. I don't know. Let's see. I really like the business because it's if you do a good job, people will pay, and if you don't, they won't. And so it's pretty simple, and I like simple. So it's a very, very good business for that. And I really like this region because there's a lot of energy, and so I like to help. And if there's anybody that needs coaching or help or whatever, I'm open to it totally. But yeah, I think that's where I'm going to be.
We have literally 5 minutes to go, so some of the questions we answered, so I won't get back to it, but do you have any questions you would like to ask off the bat? Ján? All right, so I'll use this opportunity. We also here at 100 Ventures and campus, we try to work with corporations, and before it was really hard to get into the corporates, and now they're also on the buzz wave with innovation, trying to get in. Do you see any opportunities, how startups can work with corporations, or maybe you guys at WebSupport, maybe you see more, I don't know, cooperation with larger players or something like that?
I think there's like 2 things driving it. One is that the corporations are realizing that their ability to innovate is dependent on agility. And agility is something that if you have everything institutionalized, it's hard to keep because just the turnaround time for decision is long. And so one opportunity I see is that finding a way to understand what the corporation needs, or when, to be very specific, where does it need to innovate? What's the challenge they're facing? And if you can find a way to help that, then that's a great way of working with them, because they will appreciate it. It's going to be very hard for them to replace it. It's a great opportunity in that sense, you know. So that's one thing. Another thing is a lot of corporations, they have massive customer bases. You know, some of the big ones have amazing customer bases. So if you have a great product, at least a value-added service, whether it's a software as a service or whatever it is, they're a great channel. And I think that's something that is underappreciated. It's also hard because the multinationals that are in Slovakia, they don't have their HQs here. So you can't really get to a decision maker, I don't know, many times here. But if you have a great value-added service, if you have a product that you think would fit the customer base of a multinational, they need growth, they will sell it. But you have to find the right people, and you have to have a great pitch, and you have to have a great product, and you have to be able to actually serve those customers, because that's one of the blocking points I see with a lot of startups. If they go this route, I have a great product, you know, there's a telecom that might sell it, but what happens if we succeed? What happens if I sell it to suddenly 150,000 people? How am I going to support this? Because the telecom is not going to do it. They don't know how, they don't know the product. And so there's like these kind of challenges. But if you find the right fit, you know, you can ride the wave of cooperation.
You guys have an HQ here. What could startups do for you? What are your pain points now? Or what, I mean, how could they help WebSupport?
You know, we're always looking at something that we are just discussing, and you know, we have this discussion about machine learning, bots, AI, these kind of things, because we think it can automate some things we do, not necessarily in the trivial sense, but really some of the backends and some of the ways we do things. So definitely interesting technology is something that we would adopt pretty quickly if we think it's a right fit. So these types of machine learning, that's something I'm looking at right now. Obviously, innovation in like infrastructure, in infrastructure management, which Slovakia is not really a hub of. The Czech Republic is a bit better in this, and so but we're looking always for these kind of things. And then obviously value-added services. You know, if you think that your product, and we have a lot of these kind of corporations, we're not necessarily selling it ourselves, but we're definitely providing our customers with the option to use, you know, content emails on our website, Superfactor and others. You know, we can promote and share these kind of products as added value products to our customers. But if there's something we could actually sell, you know, we're totally happy to talk to you. Especially, we believe strongly that while you can be, I want to be a European company, you still have to act locally, because this is a business-to-consumer business. Even if the consumer is a business, at the end of the day, it's a consumer. You know? And so they need local support, they need local, you know, community with these kind of tools. And so we believe that if you guys have a local product that could be valuable to our customers, I'm totally open to talking to you, and we have some of those conversations on board. Yeah.
Sounds good. The opportunity right there. All right, guys. So if you don't have any questions, or do you? All right, there's one. Slava.
Yeah. Hi, thank you for insightful conversation. I have a question about MBA. How do you think it has contributed to your personality or job? Because to me it seems that you have quite a structured way of making decisions and running the company. It's you say less emotional maybe as for founding CEOs and more like structural. Is that the result of MBA, or how would you say MBA is useful to you or not, and would you recommend it in which cases? And another thing I heard about idea meritocracy, I saw this concept in Ray Dalio's book, Principle. Is it coming from there, or maybe can you also drop a few book recommendations? Thank you.
Thanks for great questions. So I really appreciate the comment that I have structured thinking, because that's something that would nobody ever say about me, but thank you, I appreciate it. No, it's actually the structured thinking comes from years of pain. Because, because we, you know, in piano when we started, we were doing everything, it was chaos. It was, as every startup in the beginning, like, well, let's be honest, right? It's just a mess, you know? But over time, if you want to run things, if you want to scale, you're going to have to be structured. So I'm personally not structured, but I have great tools. And if you read Ray Dalio's Principles, then it's a good, I think I didn't get the idea of the idea person from the book, but he definitely gave a name to what I was thinking about or how I would like to work. And it's by no means perfect in WebSupport, trust me, it's hard. Bridgewater, they did a great job there, but I would not be able to implement the same thing. But he named what I really think, how I would like to run my company, and I think that word is great. The MBA, you know, the way I got into the MBA is that after the German company, I worked for 1 year at a local Slovak software house, a very old software house, where I again worked with a founder there, the old guy, 71-year-old, when I came there. And he was amazing, he was super smart. He didn't know anything about the newest technology, but he was a great businessman and I learned a lot from him. And when they brought me on board to save a project, they were merging 2 banks, and the owner of one of the bank, the buyer bank was Belgian, and it was a Belgian bank, and they were very structured, very corporate, and I just freshly had the corporate skills from Infineon, so they brought me on, and at one point they were asking whether I would consider to replace him. And I was like, holy cow, I'm this young guy, I have no idea what I'm doing. And so I did what I do in all these things. I called my brother and said, hey guys, what do you think? I want to do an MBA because I felt like I have no idea what I'm doing, and these guys wanted to be CEOs. So I want to do an MBA, and I told my wife I'm going to do it part-time, I'm going to go to Brno. I think there's a school for an MBA there. And my wife said, are you crazy? Like, if you want to go for an MBA, go to an international proper school. I said, no, but I have this job that I could take and I would balance it. You're not going to be able to balance it. Like, no, you have to pick one. You know? And so, actually, she convinced me to do the MBA in Belgium. And Belgium was the consequence of my brother actually being there, whatever. And so, the reason why I did it is that I felt that to really run a team well and run a company, the company had 120 people, it was bigger than WebSupport is today. I really need to, I can be as talented as whoever, but without the hard skills, you can't do that. And so for me, an MBA was to catch up what I missed in university. Because I studied physics and I didn't do anything with those skills, except, I didn't go through those skills. Maybe I'm not thinking. And so the MBA allowed me to gain like finance, and I had an amazing teacher for it. I thought accounting would be my death. It was my favorite subject. The teacher was amazing. I understand accounting so well. They called me a CFO. I never did it before, but I was the CFO for Piano when we were raising money. Fake it till you make it. And so I highly recommend doing an MBA if you feel it will fill the skill gap. That's number one. If you feel you need a network in a particular country, do an MBA there. All the smart people and their kids will go to that school, probably. You know, and so you can get a network. I got an amazing network in Belgium, Benelux, and other contacts. By the way, you know, a couple of years ago, when a Belgian company was considering buying WebSupport, my brother was the banker in Belgium for that company, and he asked me which company I would recommend. I said WebSupport. It was 5 years before I was asked to be CEO. And so you see that the connections you can make there, at the beginning, they seem crazy, like how is this going to help me? But it works. So that's 2. And 3, if you're in a corporation, look at how their kind of global grading is. Do you know what that is? In corporations, you have global grades. You know, you start at somewhere, and CEO is, I don't know, 72, and middle management is 30, or whatever, you know? And they have it as a condition sometimes that you have to have an MBA, or a master's, or a PhD, or whatever. And so these are 3 reasons. For me, I was never looking at return on investment. I was never looking for, like, how is this going to kind of get me more money, you know, or move me in a corporation. I just wanted to have this international experience, and I had a ride, it was party, it was fun, it was great, but it really filled a gap for me of actually formally understanding finance, operations, HR, change management, these kinds of things that may sound like buzzwords to you, but if you want to come into a company and change it, doing it writing on toilet paper does not work. You know, so you have to have some understanding of how those dynamics work. So for me, I recommend it. Just spend the time and effort and money on it. Honestly, it does help. You need to go.
Do you have any other questions? Okay, it's after 8, so I would call it a session. And if you want, Ján will probably stick around for a couple more minutes. You can ask him personally. And thanks for coming. We will have other fireside chats down the road, so we'll keep you posted. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
If you want to rate us, please.